Okay, good morning everyone. Welcome to a blustery day here in Port Elizabeth, howling southeaster, but it is what it is. Welcome to part 2 of my Going Quiet Amidst the Storm. I just want to welcome anyone joining us for the first time, and to those that were here yesterday, welcome back. So I just want to do a brief recap before I go into part 2, and also just a reminder to everyone that part 1 is on my Facebook page. It's recorded there for anyone who wants to watch it, or if you want to forward it to anyone or share it with anyone, or for those that are joining in here for the first time to be aware that you can go look at part 1 over there. Okay, so I just want to do a quick recap. So basically what happened was we just went over why I'm using the metaphor of a hurricane, because of the tumultuous and destructive nature of a hurricane, and how once that passes, everything's renewed, but there's a lot of destruction. However, in the center of the hurricane, there's a perfect calm, the peace in the middle of the storm, and this is what we're trying to center on or focus on for this round of discussions. Then we touched on a couple of other few things. We spoke about flexibility. We spoke about fish being caught up in their seas and the water, not realizing they're in the water, very much the same way we are, where we're caught up in our minds and our thoughts and our feelings. We spoke a bit about the mind-body connection, how everything's interrelated, our thoughts, our feelings, our body, and how these things all connect in our behaviors. And then we also touched on the A plus B equals C, how everything is an activating event plus our belief about the event and ending up with a consequence, and how we don't want to have that consequence. We don't want to sit with discomfort in our lives, and how we end up becoming quite controlling after that. And we end up trying to control the input variable, like we use the example of a snake. It could be our partners, it could be our friends, it could be our family, it could be extended family. And the whole idea about this is that we are trying to control things that we can't control. So today we're going to carry on the series from this perspective and start discussing how do we go about that? How do we move away from this feeling of being totally in control? So I just want to go past this first slide. So in psychology, we've got this idea called internal locus of control and external locus of control. So if you had a look at my page yesterday, I think it was last night, I posted a picture about internal locus and external locus of control. Those with the internal locus of control have a lot more control over their environments than those with the external locus of control. The majority of us have an external locus of control, which means that our environments end up controlling us. So Stephen Covey, in his book 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, had a wonderful, easy way of trying to show this idea of internal versus external locus of control. Hi Barbara, joining us there from Scotland. I see you, and I see Elaine's in there from the UK. Welcome. So Stephen Covey's version of this idea of internal versus external locus speaks thus. He says, essentially we have a circle of concern. Anything outside that circle shouldn't be of concern to us, and what's inside that circle should be of concern to us. So outside that circle, kind of currently, we could have things like Donald Trump, Boris Johnson, and we wish him well, he's in hospital, things that are going on in China, but these shouldn't overly concern us in our immediate environment. We shouldn't lose sleep over it. It's not, we have no control over that. What we should be worried about is things that are inside our circle of concern. And things that should go inside our circle of concern are things like our family, our friends, our colleagues, our work, finances, health, all these kind of things should be in there. Morning Nadine, I see you joining us. So there's a number of things that should go inside our circle of concern. Now inside that circle of concern, there's another circle. This is our circle of influence. And this is where we should be standing, all right? But what happens is so many of us end up standing outside our circles of influence instead of inside our circle of influence. And when this happens, the problem here is that we end up trying to control the things that we can't control. And when that happens, the external environment ends up crushing it and reducing our circle of influence to a minute size of a pea, let's call it. It's normally at this stage that people either feel like they're having a breakdown, they feel completely overwhelmed, they feel powerless, helpless. Morning, Natasha. And so then we end up being stuck and not knowing what to do. So then we seek out a coach or a psychologist or our pastors or someone to come and help us because we don't know what to do. But we are totally out of control at that point. So the idea then is to get back into our circle of influence, to stand in the middle here, right in the middle again. And then to start controlling what you can control. And when that happens, your circle of influence grows. When that happens, your circle of influence and your impact on the environment starts changing. So this is a really powerful model to show internal versus external locus of control. Stephen Covey's book doesn't go any further than that. However, I kept getting asked the question, yes, I understand that, that's all good and well, Greg, but how do I get into my circle of influence? So inside that circle of influence, there are a number of areas. And when I have a group in front of me that I can interact with, this can take 20, 30 minutes just to kind of go through the circle, because I want people to start thinking about what we have control over. And I normally say to people when we go through this, and many people struggle. They struggle with trying to find an idea of any of those segments. They'll say, oh, I have control over my health. And I'll say, no, you don't. Someone can sneeze on you and you can be sick the next day. So we don't have control over our health. I have control over my weight. Yeah, kind of. But if someone feeds you a big plate of food, you might scoff that down. So we don't have control over our weight. So we have to break this right down to the basic bare minimums of what do we have control over. And essentially, because I can't process it now with the group, there are only 4 things. And I only have control over myself. Unless someone's got a gun to my head, unless I'm in a straitjacket, the only 4 things I have control over are thoughts, feelings, our behavior or actions, and what comes out of our mouths. These are the only 4 areas. Now, many of you might be arguing and say, oh, well, it's not, so-and-so made me angry, or that person, I spend the whole night worrying about that person or thinking about what that person said to me. Or I'm going to swear at that person tomorrow when I get a chance, or I should have said this to them, or I should have said that. Or I'm quite reactive. So the minute we are doing this, we are leaking power. We lose energy. The power leaks away from our center, the center of what we can control. So we have to get better control over these 4 areas of our life. And in subsequent sessions, what I'm going to be doing across the next week or so, I'm going to be running, I've got a number of presentations on getting to grips with these. In these first 2 sessions, I just want to bring in the idea so that you have an idea of what it is that we can use or lead to the center to find our centers in this hurricane. So these are 4 areas that I'm going to cover: thoughts, emotions, words, actions. And as I said in the previous one, we spoke about flexibility. So we have to get control of this and to stop being so reactive. And when we are reactive or impulsive, we can be making silly decisions again, irrational decisions, emotional decisions. So we have to find some way of protecting these 4 areas. And a very old word might be willpower, but nowadays a more current, more contemporary word is mindfulness. Mindfulness is becoming really, really important in many spheres, in management. They're using it all over the place to become more mindful. So mindfulness is extremely important to become more conscious. So the opposite of mindfulness is mindlessness. So this slide speaks to the opposite of mindfulness, which is mindlessness, and the opposite of mindlessness being mindfulness. And right in the beginning, we spoke about those 3 things: mindlessness, herd mentality, and what I call the zombie apocalypse, when we kind of shut down or just go to sleep or become habitual thinkers or get caught up in our routines, our ruts. So the opposite mindfulness is, this is not a mindfulness lecture, and I will be doing some more talks around mindfulness and explaining what that is, but essentially it's paying attention in a particular way. And that particular way is a focused particular way. You have chosen to pay attention. So if you're drinking coffee, I've chosen to sip the coffee, smell it, taste it, feel it, touch it, enjoy it. And to do it on purpose in the present moment, and certainly non-judgmentally. And I think I'm going to spend a whole 2 or 3 sessions just talking on judgments and how judgmental we can become. And judgments are not just about being judgmental about other people. It's being judgmental about how we feel. It's not okay to feel scared. It's not okay to feel sad now. It's not okay to feel insecure. We should be feeling all these things right now. We're going through quite a torrid time. Our lives have been turned upside down. So we should be feeling scared and insecure and confused about what tomorrow is going to bring. But we shouldn't be judgmental about it. We should be okay with it or open to it. So just a quick slide and remind you just how popular mindfulness has become, and to show you how it's gained in popularity over the last 20 years or so. Probably about the same time positive psychology started, mindfulness has also taken a huge leap in popularity. So simply put, when we start becoming more mindful, another way of thinking about it might be when we become more conscious, is that we will certainly reduce our impulsivity and our reactive ways. We will assist, it helps you to get back to your center, to find your center, because you become more conscious and you pull yourself out of your thinking. You start to enjoy the present moment more. I think just a lot of people have been posting on Facebook about how they're starting to enjoy this family time. They started missing family time. They were missing what was going on around them because they were caught up in their work and their busy humdrums of their lives. We had a slide in the first part about have we become hamsters on a mental treadmill. So mindfulness will also increase your focus by engaging fully in what you're doing rather than getting lost in your thoughts. So many of us are on autopilot. We spoke a bit about autopilot also in the first part. And it certainly would increase your calm by noticing your feelings as they come and go without attempting to control them. If you remember in A plus B equals C in that first part, we spoke about how we're trying to control these emotions. We don't want to feel them. Instead of just saying it's okay to feel them and be more rational with our responses, we don't need to run away from them once we become a bit more mindful. This then is a simple mindfulness exercise. I thought I'll put something in. This is just a brief talk, but this is one of the simplest exercises in order to bring you back to your out of mental processing, because we have two ways of processing information that's coming in. One is our mental processing, which is based on past and future, but essentially coming out of the past. And the other one would be sensory processing. And the quickest, easiest way to get into the present moment is through your senses. Sight, hearing, taste, touch, and smell. And this idea of 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 is a simple exercise. You can practice it when you're standing in the queue in the supermarket. Not that many of us are spending time in the supermarket now, but it's the one time I do it. As soon as I started getting irritated with the cashiers, I think of 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and it's one of the simplest exercises to put myself back into the present. So what is 5, 4, 3, 2, 1? 5 is to look around you and notice 5 things that you can see. And again, it's not to put judgment onto that. So for me, it will be a computer monitor, it's laptop, web camera, iPad, flip chart. To just simple things like that. Not flip chart's untidy, it's sitting skew, it's got a whole lot of writing on it. No judgments, just exactly what you see. Then 4 things you can hear: Greg's voice, clock ticking, wind outside, dogs barking. 3 is body sensations. And again, someone once said to me, I can feel that I'm hungry. And I said, no, that's a thought. That's mental processing. And it's so difficult for you to pull yourself out of your heads and into our body. So this one about touch is, I can feel my bum on the chair. I can feel my elbows touching the armrests. I could feel my glasses on my nose if I had them on. I could feel my necklace around my neck. That is what touch speaks to. And then the 2 stands for 1 taste, 1 smell. 1 taste, 1 smell. And the 1 stands for 1 conscious breath. And a conscious breath, if you've never heard of this term conscious breath, we breathe unconsciously all the time. A conscious breath is simply breathing in deeply, noticing the air going through your nostrils, noticing your chest rise, feeling the air come back out of your nostrils, noticing your chest deflating. That's 1 conscious breath. I think Eckhart Tolle mentions that 1 conscious breath we could stop smoking, with 2 conscious breaths we could stop alcohol, and with 3 conscious breaths we could stop heroin addiction. That's how powerful a conscious breath is, because a conscious breath just puts you back into your body. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, sight, hearing, body, taste and smell, and 1 conscious breath. So this talk was we started with this talk about how to thrive in the COVID-19 hurricane. And we have these 2 ideas, survival and thriving. Survival is important. It's extremely important, especially for the ego. And survival speaks to, certainly it has a lot to do with fear, etc. So, where's my little cursor gone here? So the negative emotions, fear, anger, despair, envy, pride, jealousy, etc., these all help us to survive and make us very reactive and defensive and impulsive. And then we become victims and we end up living with stress and suffering. Okay? But it's much better to start thriving inside the hurricane. With thriving comes your positive emotions like love, calm, curiosity, delight, interest, joy. And these help us to thrive rather than to survive. And when we do this, we move from being a victim to a survivor and end up living with a lot more vitality. And vitality is an abundance of energy rather than feeling stress and suffering, which is way more draining. I'm not sure how many of you have come across this, but I think this is a very powerful exercise, and I've used it with great results in groups that I've run. I'm just going to read it to you. Today was the absolute worst day ever, and don't try and convince me that there's something good in every day. Because when you take a closer look, this world's a pretty evil place. Even if some goodness does shine through once in a while, satisfaction and happiness don't last. And it's not true that it's all in the mind and heart, because true happiness can be obtained only if one's surroundings are good. It's not true that good exists. I'm sure you can agree that the reality creates my attitude. It's all beyond my control, and you'll never in a million years hear me say that today was a good day. So, extremely pessimistic, negative, deflating. There's a whole lot of words that we could throw at this. But when we read this, and this one speaks to the fact of duality again, that everything is 2 sides to one coin. So there's another way of looking at this, and that's from the bottom up. Today was a good day, and you'll never in a million years hear me say it's all beyond my control. My attitude creates the reality. I'm sure you can agree it's not true that good exists only if one's surroundings are good. True happiness can be obtained. It's all in the mind and heart, because it's not true that satisfaction and happiness don't last. Some goodness does shine through once in a while, even if this world's a pretty evil place. Because when you take a closer look, there's something good in every day, and don't try to convince me that today was the absolute worst day ever. So there are always two ways of looking at something, and as I said, good and bad, good and evil, happiness and sadness are all both love and fear. They're both two sides of exactly the same coin. You can't have one without the other. And then this is about the third last slide. This is a wonderful story, frustrating story for many, and it speaks about a guy, to Africanize it, and it's the Kruger National Park. He's driving around there having a look at the game, and then he gets a bit bored, so he decides he's going to be clever and do something illegal and go off track. So he rides his Jeep off into the bush, and of course the Jeep breaks down. He gets caught in a culvert and he can't get it out and he's stuck. So he decides he'll sit there because that's the rules of survival, stay by your car. But he realizes it's too hot and it's getting dark now and he needs to get home. So he jumps out the car, and as he's walking he notices a pride of lions up on the koppie, and they all sit up and start watching him. They start coming down the koppie, and he decides he better start running. As he runs, they start running after him, and now he's sprinting, trying to get away from these lions. He ends up running, eventually comes to a cliff and can't. The lions are about 100 meters behind him, and he goes, well, now I'm dead. These lions are catching up on me. They're 100 meters behind, and he looks down and he sees a vine. So he gets onto the vine and shimmies down this cliff, and he thinks, I made it just as the lions arrive. They're roaring at him from the top. Then he thinks, okay, he can go down, but when he looks down, there's crocodiles sitting at the bottom of the vine. So he's between a rock and a hard place. He can't go up and he can't go down, and he's stuck. So he thinks he'll hang in there and just wait out. He can sort of put his feet against the cliff and stabilize himself, but he'll wait. Eventually he realizes these lions and the crocodiles aren't going anywhere. And at that moment, out of the cliff face, through a hole in the cliff face, comes a rat. And the rat starts gnawing at the vine. Okay? He reckons, well, now I'm definitely done. Because the lions are still up to the top, the crocodiles are below, I have to leave. I'm dead. So he just thinks he'll hang on there until the vine breaks and accept his death. But at that moment, he happens to look sideways, and he sees the most beautiful wild strawberry growing out of the cliff face, and it's just sort of in his grasp, and he reaches across and he grabs it. It looks beautiful and ripe. He bites into it. The juices are flowing down his chin. It's the most beautiful tasting strawberry he's ever had in his life. The most luscious, beautiful. It's bliss, pure bliss at that moment. The story ends there, and then normally out of the group there comes a sigh, like, what the hang? How can you end there? Didn't the lions eat him? Didn't he get away? What happened to the lion? And that is the end of the story. And there's a number of ways one can process this story. Most importantly, the lions represent your past, the crocodiles represent the future, the gnat gnawing at the vine is the present. But if we don't look around us, if we don't see what's in our immediate surroundings, we're going to miss out on a lot of things. We're going to miss out on families, our children growing up, the beauty around us, the bliss of eating a strawberry. In the middle of the hurricane. There can be a hurricane going on. We can miss out on the awesome things. So for me, this metaphor speaks to gratitude and having gratitude in your life. And I strongly recommend each person tries to think of at least 3 things that they're grateful for, probably at least in the morning, at least at night, but certainly at least at the minimum once a day, and to try and change those 3 things that you're grateful for. And that sort of just puts into perspective of your life versus some other people's lives that are going through struggles right now. I'm just wondering why this thing's stuck now. There we go. So again, just a call to action. I'm going to be running a number of presentations across lockdown, and some on Zoom, some on Facebook. Everything will be at no charge, and they're going to follow in sequential order. I'll just run them. It'll be a process, and I'll just label them part 1, part 2, through to part 5, etc. In that lecture series, some of the expectations or outcomes I'd like to achieve is to improve your relationship with thoughts and emotions. Certainly with mindfulness-based interventions, we don't want to change your thoughts and emotions. So many of us spend our lives running away from our thoughts and running away from our emotions. All we want to do is improve your relationship with those thoughts and emotions, to accept them. And then I want to introduce 6 key contributors to psychological inflexibility, and then to look at what are the 6 key contributors to a greater psychological flexibility, because that's what we're aiming for. And certainly this would allow for improved well-being and vitality. This is a lovely little slide that Pooh asks, what day is it? Piglet said it's today, he squeaked, and then Pooh said, that's my favorite day. So as we end off a tumultuous first quarter, I want us to make the rest of 2020 our years, to be mindful, to find our centers in the middle of the hurricanes, to become quiet amidst the storm, to make today your favorite day, and to thrive. And I want to thank you for listening. Thank you for joining me. And I want you to consider this last slide as something the caterpillar, I think we arrived at this hurricane as caterpillars. We've all gone into our cocoons, cocooning ourselves in our homes, etc. What emerges from this, and just to remind those that weren't here for the first session, we don't come out of a crisis unscathed. We never come out unchanged out of a crisis. And this certainly is a crisis. It's a global crisis. So you're either going to come out better or you're going to come out worse. So ideally, I would want everyone to emerge a better version of themselves at the end of this. And again, this is a great little slide, so we can just end off, and those of you that want to leave can leave at this point, or I'll stick around to see if there's any questions. I've just lost my one screen with Facebook though, so let's hope I can answer some questions. But the idea is that the mind is a terrible master and a wonderful slave. The mind is a terrible master and a wonderful slave. So once we can get control of our minds and we can ride it and we can take control, then our lives become truly free. So thank you all. I want to just remind everyone that this whole session was about gratitude, about presence, being in the present moment, openness, being non-judgmental, and more accepting of what's going on. And most importantly, to remain psychologically flexible, psychologically and emotionally flexible. So thank you. I just want to see if I can pull up that Facebook stream again and see if I can see if there are questions there. If it's still there. I don't know if I've still got the page. I think I've lost the page, so I'm going to have to end there. I'm just going to answer your questions then on Facebook in the links. Thank you for joining us.